Hello. Welcome to the college football week 10 recap of Why Wait Till Sunday? And this week, maybe I should have waited till Sunday to play any lineups. For the first time in three iterations of this show, we are going to have to hit the podium and discuss an L. It was a rough week. We're going to diagnose it, take a look and see what went wrong. But fortunately, I had one tournament lineup that scored really high. I got lucky, and basically that one tournament paid for most of the other losses. The quarterbacks we talked about in terms of identifying values, the biggest one I really loved, Keaton Slovis. He had 27 points off 7,800. Not great, but not awful either. That was a weird game. I watched most of it. I thought he looked good. USC moved the ball a ton. There were two fumbles, one very close to the goal line, actually, and the other one I believe was in the red zone. Neither were his fault. They were runs where the running back fumbled, lost the ball. So those were two drives that did not end in any points. And then additionally, they were down inside the 5 and ran the ball 4 times in a row, got stuffed on everyone. I don't even think they made yards on any of the carries, and for some reason would not put it in Slovis's hands, who's clearly a great quarterback, I think. So that's weird. That's 3 drives that ended in 0 points, and they got very close to the goal line. He had tons of yards. He approached 400 yards. He wound up with 2 touchdowns, but I really think it should have been more. I don't mind that play at all. They look like they could move the ball. They threw the ball like 50 plus times. Granted, some of it was comeback mode, but I mean, the volume was definitely there. And he wound up okay. I think he's good. I like his weapons, and I'd definitely play him again. I think that game was just funky. They ended up, scoring 2 touchdowns in the last 3 minutes to win the game, which was very surprising finish. And they're well on their way to looking good this season. Tanner Morgan was a complete disaster, disappointment. Minnesota wants to run the ball. I think I'm done with them. I mean, maybe Bateman in some games. We'll talk about him. Max Duggan came in with 38 points. He made it work with 3 rushing touchdowns and an 80-yarder in the fourth quarter to really actually that's what I needed to basically break almost even on the day. He's not a bad play just because, like I said, I mean, he's the engine of the offense. He had the most rushing yards, most rushing attempts, 3 touchdowns through the ground, but through the air, the guy is not very good and had 73 yards and a pick on 11 for 23. So he's more of a running back that you get a little bump on the passing game. But for DraftKings purposes, he was great. I mean, 6,400, scored 38 points. Jeff Doji, I think it is, 6,100. He did get 300 yards, so that's great. He just didn't get a passing touchdown. That's another one where there was one bobbled in the end zone by our guy, Winston Wright. Didn't catch it on the review. Could have been better. I mean, I really think how often is a guy going to throw for 300 yards, no picks, and yet not have a touchdown? In fact, they only had 1 offensive touchdown, a Letty Brown run. So, kind of another just weird game. I mean, threw for 300, but no scores. Corin Taylor, he was interesting. I ended up backing off. I mean, sometimes these cheap quarterbacks are cheap for a reason. I mean, the kid was a 4th stringer on Illinois, which really is all you need to know. He definitely had some rushing. They were content just to basically run the ball all day and try to keep it close, which they really didn't. 12 points. I don't care what price you are. You can't have a 12-point QB. And then Sam Howell did well, but it was running back day in Durham for the UNC Duke game. He had 29 points. That's great. He ran the ball in, but Javonte Williams, who we'll talk about, had 3 rushing touchdowns. He also caught a touchdown. So Howell threw 2 touchdown passes to running backs. It was just running back bonanza. For UNC. So he had 29, but I mean, you want more than that, I think, out of his $8,100 price tag, I think it is. So basically QBs, I had the most of Slovis and Duggan, A little Clifford. Oh, we didn't talk about Sean Clifford for Penn State. I mean, it's funny. I said on the preview show that Dugan's basically a cheaper version of Clifford, and that's exactly what it was. I mean, both guys were well under 50% passing, almost did nothing notable through the air. Clifford had 2 touchdowns in total garbage time because the whole game was pretty much garbage time. He came out with 28 points, but again, did most of his work on the ground and just awful through the air. I mean, if you're watching the game cast, you would just see like incomplete, and then, 11-yard completion just to get the first down. But just incredibly inefficient. I mean, mind-blowingly inefficient against Maryland, which is just, awful. And another guy we talked about was Ritter, who had 41 points. He was incredible. He's looking great. And, they don't play a very tough defense for the rest of the season. He's going to continue to be very expensive. But again, you like these quarterbacks where the whole offense runs through them, whether it's on the ground or through the air. He had like 3 rushing touchdowns. He had 41 points. Desmond Ritter, hats off. I think I had 1 or 2 lineups, but everybody else was terrible, so didn't do much. All right. To running backs, we touched on Javonte Williams, who continues to just be unbelievable. I mean, he looked incredible. I'm going to have to stop fading this guy who I kind of thought was a lumbering running back, but he's a beast. He's their workhorse. It's a good offense. They get in scoring position a lot, and he capitalizes. So he had 4 touchdowns, 1 on the ground, or 3 on the ground, 1 through the air. And killed any kind of Howell stacks with a receiver. And he looks great. I mean, 48 points, and I didn't have any. Or I had 2, but I don't think it even mattered. And then Mohamed Ibrahim, 53 points, 4 touchdowns for the second week in a row. It didn't even matter. They could have made him 12,000. They could have made him 15,000. It wouldn't have mattered. You needed Ibrahim, especially in a tournament. This is Minnesota's identity. They want to do this, and they're comfortable doing it, and they're doing it well, running the ball just into oblivion. And so he had 53 points. The price tag didn't matter, and I only had a handful, although he was on the big tournament lineup that helped. Let's talk about the misses. Honestly, it's pretty clear what killed almost every single lineup, because every single lineup had either Chuba Hubbard or Devin Ford or both. And both of those guys came in under 5 points. Chuba at least has an injury excuse, although he wasn't doing much prior to the injury, was continuing to be fairly inefficient. And that offense, Tylan Wallace was like a late scratch, and without him threatening, it was really, really ugly. And then Hubbard went out. So, I mean, obviously that killed his DraftKings day, but I'm not sure he would have been a great play regardless. Time to really rethink Chuba Hubbard, I think, unless the matchup is just really good. At least at his price tag. I don't know what's up with him. He just looks slow. I mean, if he doesn't break a huge one, and he needs a big hole to break a huge one, I'm not sure he's a great running back in terms of shiftiness and all that. I mean, he's a track star, but I don't know. He looks bad all year, and then he got injured. So anyway, the injury is what really, really killed us there. Devin Ford, I mean, I'd do it again. I would do it again against Maryland. There's no injury that I know of. Nothing was listed. Keziah Holmes actually looked better. I'm at a loss. That was terrible. And then the game flow got completely out of hand, which was also a surprise. But you know what? I'm not sure it would have been great either way. I don't know about Devin Ford. I may have to rethink him. I thought he was kind of an exciting player, but he's been pretty all year. I thought this was the matchup to do it. And they were favored by almost 30 points and got blown out the other way. I mean, I don't even think they covered 30 on the other side. Well, maybe, I guess they did, but Devin Ford, total L. Chuba Hubbard, total L. Even if he had not gotten injured. And that was like I didn't want to pay up for running back this week, and yeah, that killed me. I mean, that absolutely killed me. So that's the lesson. I don't know what lesson that is. I mean, I really thought they were. I mean, Ford is unproven. I just was picking on Maryland. That seemed pretty easy. Stevenson against Kansas was awesome. He had 35 points, about 5x. He wound up with 2 touchdowns. And yeah, it's no secret. We're going to target players against Kansas. I just didn't love the split backfield, but it looks like he's the guy in Oklahoma. TJ Pledger had 9.6. He didn't do much. And McGowan didn't do a whole lot either. So I think it's Stevenson for Oklahoma. So that's nice going forward. Tranum for Arizona State had 20 points. I ended up not playing him. Just didn't like the uncertainty, but he looked great. He only had like 12 carries, but he had 84 yards and scored twice. I think he's going to be more involved later, but their other running back looked good too. So that could be a split backfield going forward, but he certainly is going to probably be the hammer near the goal line. He's 230 pounds, and he proved his worth. Bijan Robinson was weird. Okay, this guy had like 75 yards on 2 carries to start the game, and then was used so sparingly for the rest of the game. Wound up with another 50 yards, but I think it could have been so much better. But I can't complain. I mean, he scored 20 points off $4,500 price tag, 4.5x. That's great. I had a lot of Robinson, and didn't get in the end zone, but he put up 20 points without scoring a touchdown. Certainly could have been better, but for 4,500, that's great. And he's good. He's exciting. I mean, 50-yard run or 56 or something on his very first touch. I think he's a real good player. If Keontae Ingram stays out, we're going to keep looking at him. Wide receiver had some L's here as well. Like I said, it was a bad day. The running backs totally killed me. UNC went off, but it was all running backs and pretty much. And so Miami he didn't do anything. I mean, 4.5 points. He had like 2 catches, which was a real surprise. Then let's see, Dotson for Penn State. In total comeback mode, he started getting a lot of receptions in the 3rd and 4th quarter. He finished at 30 points, which is good, but at his price tag, it was only 3.6x, which is fine. But I'm not sad I didn't play him, especially at that price. Rashad Bateman was awesome, 7,000, but finished with 33 points. And I guess, if you're going to play a Minnesota receiver, it's going to be Bateman. But man, the way the offense looks, maybe he'll even opt out and just, sit the rest of the season now that he's kind of proven that he's good still, which we all knew. But so both USC receivers that I had a lot of were St. Brown and Tyler Vaughn. St. Brown actually had a good game. I mean, 7 for 100. You're never going to really complain too much about that. Just didn't get in the end zone, but he had 20 points. Again, I mean, you need touchdowns, but that's not going to hurt too bad. I mean, he had 100 yards, and that's good. But for college, you do need a little bit more. Tyler Vaughn was pretty weak, 7 for 53. Not used on explosive plays very much, and I didn't really love what I saw to him. Drake London, I had almost no Drake London. I just, he was going to be I thought he would be their 3rd receiver, and then his price wasn't low enough to make it worth it to me. But he finished 8 for 125, and he had a good touchdown, actually the game winner. Kind of draped coverage up the seam. Kind of uses he's a big guy, but like a seam ripper, like tight end slot guy. But he was great. I mean, he was great. Most receptions, most yards. He looks really fantastic. And then Brew McCoy had 16 points, caught a touchdown off a tipped ball, but hey, we'll take it. Finished at 4x. But he, 5 for 51. If he hadn't caught the tip ball, that would have been a problem. Didn't necessarily look incredible. Had a fumble that was not, I don't think it was lost, but had a fumble. So yeah, I mean, I think the take home here is St. Brown and London for the first game at least. And I'd have no problem continuing to look at those guys. London was a guy I really liked anyway, towards the end of the year last year, but I just thought his price didn't really match for this week, but obviously he came through. Winston Wright, he was not awful in terms of like watching the game and kind of his stats. He had 4 for 56. You definitely want to see more than that. He did catch, well, he almost caught a touchdown, bobbled in the end zone, got it overturned. That would have been a big difference. Would have, put him up to 3x or whatever. But that's kind of a bummer. Again, Doji went for 300 yards, but spread the ball around a ton. No single guy really went crazy there. Ottman Bell from Minnesota, just terrible. That Minnesota passing attack, continues to do nothing. Hightower for Illinois, nothing. That passing attack, we were saved because his counterpart, Imator Bebe, came through with 14 points, 3x at 4,200. We'll take that. That was a big deal. Caught like a 50-yarder to totally save his day. Austin Stogner, we talked about him. He did good, 3.5x, scored 16 points. Leading receiver, only had 3 catches, though, as Oklahoma continues to spread the ball around and didn't need to do much through the air like we thought. Parker Washington for Penn State, again, total garbage time, but he had 27 points off a $4,100 price tag. I had a lot of him. Didn't matter too much, but 6.5x, he was great. So Imatter Baby and Washington and McCoy were nice guys to have that were very inexpensive. And then Daz Newsome, we talked a little bit about him just as a cheap option in the UNC passing game. He came through with 18 points, 4.5x off of a $4,000 price tag. So, that kind of some of the cheaper receivers were pretty good. Had a lot of Bateman, who was not bad. There was no receiver that went absolutely insane, like, Eli Moore, who scored 50-something points. It was just a day you had to have Williams or Ibrahim pretty much, or Ramondre Stevenson. And I had almost none of them. And instead, I didn't even have guys in the middle. I just had like bottom of the barrel running backs and Hubbard and Ford in most of the lineups. That killed us. So we're going to take the L this week. I hope you guys did better. And we'll learn from this going forward. But yeah, I mean, we just had to have the running backs. And for some reason, I didn't feel like I wanted to pay up too much this week for those running backs. But we're going to keep playing. And we'll be back next week. And until then, why wait till Sunday? We're looking at college football here. Peace.